The clink of cutlery against porcelain filled the room with a rhythmic, almost comforting beat. It was a regular Thursday. Nothing unusual. I'd made his favorite, roasted lemon chicken with thyme, garlic mashed potatoes, a bottle of red wine we'd been saving for some occasion. This, apparently, counted. He talked about meetings, deadlines, something his boss said that I didn't catch, and he didn't care to repeat. I smiled, nodded, played my part like I always did. Then it buzzed. His phone was face up on the table, like it always was. He never thought to hide it, never needed to. Why would he? I wasn't the kind of wife who snooped, or at least, I wasn't. Not until that night. One little vibration next to the salt shaker, a subtle glow of the screen, and there it was. I'm pregnant. Tell her soon. That was all it said. 5 words, but they hit me like a freight train. Time stopped. The knife slipped slightly in my grip, catching the edge of my finger. I didn't feel it, didn't even flinch. My eyes locked onto the screen like it had hypnotized me, a name I didn't recognize. Lisa hovered over the message. The heart emoji mocked me, mocked this dinner, this life, this lie. I looked up at him across the table. Rowan, my husband, my partner of 6 years. He didn't even notice. He was chewing, grinning at his own joke, pouring more wine into his glass. The same hands that had once trembled while placing a ring on my finger were now pouring Merlot without a care in the world. He didn't know what I'd seen. Not yet. I looked down at my plate. The food was cold. Or maybe I was. Every part of me had frozen. The chicken was perfectly golden. The wine was smooth. But everything tasted like ash. My hands felt far away. My throat closed up. I pushed my chair back slowly. Everything okay? He asked casually, his mouth still half full. I nodded. Yeah, just need a moment. He smiled. Wine too strong? I smiled back. A lie. As I walked toward the kitchen, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Not yet. That would come later. Tonight I would stay quiet. I would wait. I would plan. Because everything changed with that one message, and he had no idea what was coming. He reached for the phone like it was nothing, like it was just a buzzing reminder to pay a bill or check a weather app. His fingers wrapped around it with the ease of someone who had no reason to hide. And that almost made me laugh. The sheer confidence, the nerve, the audacity. I watched from the kitchen doorway, my hand curled tightly around the wine glass I didn't even want. He didn't notice me watching. He just lifted the phone, glanced at the screen, probably checking if I'd seen, then tapped it away like swatting a fly. He was good, calm, controlled, smirking at the television as if his entire life wasn't hanging by a thread. And maybe it wasn't, because to him, I was still in the dark, blissfully unaware, obedient, loving, his safe little secret. I stepped back into the dining room and took my seat. He looked up and smiled. You okay? Mm-hmm. I returned the smile. Warm, software effortless. It was the kind of smile I used to give him when I meant it. The kind that used to hold love, not strategy. But tonight, it was a weapon, sharp and clean. He didn't notice the change. Why would he? Men like him never do. He poured more wine into my glass, oblivious. To us, he said, raising his. I lifted mine, too. To us. We clinked. He took a long sip. I took a small one. My heart was burning behind my ribs, trying to scream. My stomach had curled into itself like a dying thing. But none of that showed. I blinked, smiled again, asked him about his day. He talked like always, long-winded, boring, full of office politics and meetings with people I didn't care about. I nodded, laughed, asked the right questions. He didn't see the war behind my eyes. He had no clue the walls were already falling in around him. That I had seen everything. That I knew. That I wasn't going to break. I was going to watch him do it instead. And I would do it with a smile on my face. Because if he could pretend to love me while building a life with someone else, Then I could pretend too. Better than he ever imagined. He always took long showers, 20 minutes minimum. He said it helped him think, unwind, clear his head. Good. Because I needed time. As soon as I heard the water running upstairs, I moved. Quiet, precise. My hands didn't even tremble as I reached for his phone where he left it charging on the kitchen counter. The passcode? Easy. Our anniversary. The same one he had apparently decided meant nothing anymore. Tap. Unlock. Messages. And there she was. Lisa. No last name. Just Lisa. With a yellow heart next to her name and a string of emojis that made my skin crawl. She had texted just hours ago. Can't wait to see our baby. Then another. Are you going to tell her? I'm starting to show. And another. Don't leave me hanging tonight, Rowan. I'm scared. I stared at the screen like I was staring into someone else's life. But it wasn't. It was mine. This was my marriage, cracked wide open in 1,000 pixelated pieces. I clicked into the full thread. Hundreds of messages, photos, voice notes. I listened to her baby voice say his name. Watched her send mirror selfies in little dresses, asking if she looked motherly enough. And his replies, God, his replies. Sweet, loving, reassuring. A man I didn't recognize. A man I never knew. Of course it's ours, baby. I'll tell her soon. I swear, you and the baby mean everything to me. She's just difficult. Difficult. That was how he described me. The woman who cleaned his blood-stained shirts, who stayed up late to finish his proposals, who carried his mother through chemo. Difficult. Lisa was 25. She worked in marketing for some lifestyle brand, lived in a small apartment in Midtown, took yoga classes, posted sunsets on her stories with quotes about energy and growth. I memorized every detail. I studied her face until it was carved into my mind. She was pretty in that soft, harmless way. The kind of girl who cried when her plant died. The kind of girl who fell in love with married men who said all the right things. She didn't know about me. Not really. But soon, she would. 2 days after the message, I invited his mother over for dinner. Just us, I'd said sweetly. It's been too long. She adored me. Always had. Said I grounded Rowan, made him better, more human. She used to call me the daughter she never had, so of course, she said yes. Arrived right on time with a pie she insisted she baked. Store-bought, obviously, but I complimented her anyway. Rowan was surprised when he saw her at the door. He blinked like he wasn't sure if it was a dream or a setup. Maybe a bit of both. But he kissed her cheek and said he was happy to see her. Liar. I cooked lamb, set the table with candles, poured wine. He looked tense, uncomfortable, which was the point. We made small talk. His mother asked if we were thinking about kids. I leaned into it with perfect poise, pretending I hadn't read about his real baby on the way. We've been talking about it more, I said with a smile. I think Rowan's finally warming up to the idea. I watched his throat tighten as he swallowed. His eyes flicked to me, unsure. He gave a forced laugh. Yeah, maybe. Grandbabies would be the best news I could get this year, his mom chirped, totally oblivious. He reached for his wine, hands a little too quick, drank more than usual. I talked about nurseries, about repainting the guest room, about names I liked. If it's a girl, I said, I've always loved the name Lila. He flinched. I almost laughed. He barely touched his lamb. His mother complimented the food, asked for seconds, said she couldn't wait to be a grandmother. I watched him squirm in his own skin, cornered in a trap only he and I knew existed. I kept refilling his glass, kept the smile on my face. Not too wide, just soft, kind. The kind of smile a wife gives when everything is perfectly fine. And he didn't say a word, because what could he say? The next morning, I didn't cry. I didn't scream into my pillow or call a friend to say I'd been betrayed. Instead, I got dressed. Black turtleneck, neat slacks, hair tied back, no makeup, just the kind of face that said, "I'm not here to collapse. I'm here to win." The law firm was in a glass tower downtown, tucked between two banks and a gourmet salad place. The receptionist offered me water and a clipboard. I filled in the details without shaking once. Name. Date. Reason for consultation. Infidelity. Financial deceit. Prenup violation. 10 minutes later, I was ushered into an office with sweeping windows and a wall lined with law books that hadn't been touched in a decade. The man behind the desk stood as I entered. Mid-40s, sharp suit, calm eyes. Introduced himself as Daniel Kessler, senior partner. I handed him the flash drive. He plugged it in. I didn't say a word. Let the screenshots speak. Text after text. Date-stamped photos. Time-stamped hotel receipts. A picture of Rowan holding Lisa's hand in a street market 2 cities over when he told me he was at a leadership seminar. He clicked slowly through each file. Didn't blink much. Occasionally nodded to himself. His fingers steepled in front of him by the time he reached the final document. A scanned ultrasound photo dated 3 weeks ago. Lisa's name was printed clearly at the top. And underneath, the expected father, Rowan Alden. Kessler turned to me. "That his real name on the form?" I nodded once. "It is." He leaned back in his chair, then forward, elbows on the desk. "He's made your case for you," he said. It wasn't pity in his voice. It was something colder, sharper, like a hunter who'd spotted fresh blood. "Prenup?" he asked. "Yes. Signed before marriage, infidelity clause included." "Excellent." He smiled then. The first real one since I entered the room. It wasn't warm. It was tactical, like we were planning something bigger than paperwork. "I want the house. And half of everything," I said. "With what he's done, you'll get more than that." I stood up. "Then let's begin." "Alara," he said, glancing down at his notes. "This isn't going to be clean, but it will be thorough." I nodded once, then left the office. My heels echoed down the marble hallway like war drums. Rowan was the kind of man who prided himself on being discreet. He cleared his browser history religiously. Always paid cash when he thought it mattered. Had passwords for everything, even his gym app. But the thing about men like him is, they always leave a thread somewhere. All I had to do was pull. And pull I did. That night, after he fell asleep with his back turned toward me like he had every night for weeks, I got up. Quietly. No light, no sound. Just the glow of my laptop in the guest room we once called his reading den. I started with our joint bank account. Everything seemed normal at first. Groceries, utilities, dinners, car maintenance. The mask of a stable, middle-class life. But a closer look revealed irregular transfers every few weeks. Exactly $3,000. Always on a Thursday. Always going to an unnamed external card. I traced the routing numbers. And there it was. A second account. In his name. Separate from ours. Hidden. He had funded it quietly, carefully, through work bonuses and travel reimbursements. It was his escape hatch. His other life. I got into it. Second credit card. Registered to a P.O. box I didn't recognize. I opened the statements, eyes scanning line by line. $1,200. Airbnb, Lower East Side. $89. Prenatal vitamins, private pharmacy. $425. Sonotech Imaging Center. $760. Fine dining, reservation for 2. $3,000. Jewelry boutique, no name listed. My hands started to shake. He bought her a necklace, paid for her scans, slept with her in rented apartments while I ironed his shirts, took her out to restaurants he claimed were too loud for us. A piece of me wanted to throw the laptop through the window, but I didn't. I took screenshots, every page, every charge. I built a folder on my desktop and named it simply, Truth. Every file was a dagger, and I intended to use every one. The fury wasn't hot. It was cold. Frozen. Precise. Not the kind that makes you yell. The kind that sharpens you into something unrecognizable. Into a weapon. He thought he was clever. Thought he had built walls high enough to hide behind. But the problem with walls is, once you see the cracks, they're all you notice, and I was going to blow his whole world open, one receipt at a time. Lisa. I'd studied her photos so much I could draw her face from memory. Soft cheeks, light brown eyes, a small dimple when she smiled. She looked like the kind of woman who called her mom every night. Who said, "I'm sorry," when someone bumped into her. The kind of woman who still believed in the idea of love, and that made her dangerous. I knew her schedule. I had traced her office, her favorite cafe, even her gym. It wasn't hard. She was online constantly, always posting where she was, what she was drinking, who she was grateful for. She lived her life in hashtags. So I waited for her outside her favorite coffee shop on 5th. Just long enough to make it look natural. Just long enough to become part of her world for one moment. When she walked out, coffee in hand, I accidentally bumped her elbow. She gasped, startled, and spilled a bit on her coat. "Oh God, I'm so sorry." "No, that was totally my fault," I said gently, handing her a napkin from my purse. "Terrible reflexes. Let me buy you another." She blinked, then smiled. "It's okay, really. Just a little spill." We stood there for a beat, two strangers, pretending. "Still," I said, smiling back, "can I at least offer company while you finish the rest?" Something about me must have seemed safe. She nodded, stepping back into the cafe with me. I ordered us both tea. We talked like women do when they don't know they're standing on the edge of a cliff. She told me she was pregnant. 4 months. Her first. I widened my eyes like I was surprised, congratulated her with just the right tone of awe. Then she told me about him. Not by name. Just my boyfriend. She said he was going to leave his wife, that he was kind, overwhelmed, stuck. She said he loved her, that they had a plan. I nodded, sipped my tea, and said all the right things. She looked happy. Nervous, but happy. She believed she was building something sacred. And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't expected. Pity. Not for her, not for him. For the baby. Because that child was being born into a lie. Into a triangle of betrayal so deep, none of us would walk out clean. When we said goodbye, she hugged me. A stranger. Just because I listened. I walked away slowly, the weight of her perfume still clinging to my coat. She had no idea who I was. But soon, she would. 2 days after our cafe encounter, I mailed the truth. A manila envelope. No return address, no note, just facts. Printed screenshots of their messages. Photos of Rowan kissing another woman a month before her birthday. A receipt from a jewelry store for a necklace she never got, because he gave it to someone else, 2 weeks before Valentine's Day. The ultrasound invoice, his second credit card statement. And, for good measure, a hotel receipt dated the same day he told her he was at a company retreat. Every lie, every secret, every twisted little detail he thought he'd buried deep. I sealed it with shaking hands. Not from regret, there was none, but from the weight of what I was about to do. I dropped it in a public mailbox near the river. No cameras, no eyes. Just the soft sound of paper sliding into the abyss. Let the truth land like a bomb. Let her feel what I felt. I imagined her opening it. Maybe on a Sunday, on her couch, tea in hand. Belly starting to swell. Maybe with that little dreamy smile she wore when she thought of him. Then she'd see the first page, and her world would tilt. She'd flip through it, page after page, each one tearing down the fantasy she'd built. He was never hers. He was never honest. He had never stopped lying, not to me, and not to her. He used us both. And now, she would know. I didn't include my name, didn't need to. The truth didn't need a narrator. It just needed daylight. And besides, this wasn't about warning her. This was about starting a fire. She would know what kind of man he really was. And once that seed of doubt was planted in her, it would grow. Faster than her baby. Louder than her heartbeat. And while she tried to figure out whether to run or stay, I'd already be 5 moves ahead. Because I wasn't done. I wasn't even close. He told me it was a casual thing. Just lunch with the boss and a couple of department heads, he said, tightening his tie in the mirror. Spouse is optional, but no pressure. No pressure? I insisted on coming. I wore my best black sheath dress, the one that fit like second skin, the one Rowan always said made me look expensive. I paired it with diamond studs he gave me on our 3rd anniversary. He told me I looked stunning. I told him he did too. I smiled the entire drive. The restaurant was high-end but soulless. Glass, chrome, and overpriced wine lists. His boss, a ruddy man named Charles Kemp, greeted me like I was the Duchess of Cambridge. I was warm, charming, engaging. I made jokes, complimented the food, asked thoughtful questions about quarterly growth projections. Every word carefully measured, every glance a dagger in disguise. Rowan sat beside me, shoulders rigid, eyes scanning me every few minutes like I might slip. But I didn't. I was perfect. I laughed when I needed to, touched his arm when appropriate, bragged gently about how hard he worked, how much he cared about the company. I made him look like a man with a rock-solid home life. A man stable enough for promotion. A man trustworthy. And then over dessert, his boss asked if we were planning a family. I sipped my espresso, smiled and said, "We've talked about it more seriously lately. Maybe this year." Rowan froze, just for a second, then forced a tight laugh. Charles beamed. "That's wonderful to hear. Nothing makes a man sharper at work than a family to fight for." Rowan nodded slowly. "Yeah, that's true." I kissed his cheek lightly. "He'll be a great dad one day." He didn't speak the rest of dessert. That night, after he fell asleep beside me, finally convinced I was still blind, I opened my email. To Charles Kemp. Subject, confidential, Rowan Alden. Attachment, ultrasound, invoice, Lisa Martinez.pdf. No message body, just the file. I hit send. I imagined Charles opening it in the morning. The name, the date, the listed father, the timestamp that lined up perfectly with the business trip Rowan took on the company's dime. The company card he used at the hotel listed at the bottom of the invoice. Let him do the math. Let him feel the panic of a man who just realized one of his rising stars wasn't just lying to his wife. He was exploiting the company too. By morning, the seed of professional doubt would be planted right beside the personal one I left with Lisa. And Rowan would wake up none the wiser. But soon he'd feel the walls tighten, because I wasn't just after his heart anymore. I was after everything. He slammed the front door so hard the hallway mirror rattled. I was on the couch, legs folded beneath me, flipping calmly through a home decor magazine I had no intention of reading. The wine beside me was untouched, just for show. Rowan stormed into the room like a man set on fire. "What did you do?" he hissed. "What the hell did you send her?" I looked up, raised an eyebrow. "Hello to you too. Don't play games with me, Alara." His voice cracked with panic. "She's gone. She won't answer my calls, my texts. Her apartment's empty." I tilted my head slowly. "Gone?" "She left," he shouted, raking a hand through his hair. "She said I'm a liar, that she knows everything, that I'm disgusting. What the hell did you do?" He looked wild, sweating, flushed, lips trembling from rage or fear, maybe both. For a moment I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I rose, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of water. He followed, breathing hard. "You ruined everything," he shouted. "You had no right." I turned to face him. calm, unmoved. Did Lisa like the envelope? He froze. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might faint. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. His hands, still clenched into fists, slowly dropped to his sides. I took a long sip of water, then set the glass down carefully. You think you're clever, he said, voice suddenly lower, broken. You think this makes you powerful? No, I said. You made me powerful the moment you underestimated me. His jaw tensed. You're a monster. No, Rowan. You made the mess. I'm just sweeping it into the light. For a long time, he didn't speak, just stood there, breathing like he'd run a marathon. Then he turned, walked slowly to the living room, and collapsed onto the armchair like a man defeated in battle. I returned to the couch, picked up the magazine, flipped the page. You were never supposed to find out, he muttered. You should have thought about that before you gave your mistress your real name. He didn't reply. And I didn't care. Because finally, he looked as small as I felt the night I saw that first message. And this time, I wasn't the one who would be crying in the dark. My phone rang at 9:47 p.m., a number I didn't recognize. For a moment, I almost didn't answer, but something in me knew. I picked up, heart steady, voice smooth. Hello? There was a silence, then a trembling inhale. Is this Alara? I didn't reply, just waited. Then the tears started on the other end, the kind that choke out words, the kind that say everything before anything is said. I didn't know, she whispered. Oh my God, I swear I didn't know about you. I didn't know you were real. Still, I said nothing. He told me he was divorced, she sobbed. He said it was final, that you cheated, that you left. I believed him. God, I was so stupid. I thought I was helping him heal. My fingers clenched around the phone, but my voice remained like stone. You're pregnant with his child. I don't want anything from him, she said quickly, desperately. I swear to you, Alara, I blocked him. I left the city. I don't even care about child support. I couldn't stay in the lie. I couldn't carry a baby in a world built on his betrayal. She was crying so hard now, her words came in pieces. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you. But I feel like I ruined your life. I closed my eyes. No, I said quietly. He did. Lisa didn't reply for a moment. Then, why did you send it? You deserve to know the truth, I answered, before he wrecked you the way he wrecked me. There was another pause. Then something I didn't expect. Gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. No one's ever protected me like that. Not even my own family. We didn't speak long after that. She said she had a friend upstate. Said she'd stay there for a while. Said she was going to keep the baby but raise it on her own. She didn't want money or closure. She just wanted peace. As the call ended, I stared at the black screen in my hand for a long while. Lisa hadn't betrayed me. Not really. She was just the collateral. Rowan had burned everything, but at least one of us had a chance to start again. We met again on a rainy Thursday afternoon, just 2 weeks after her call. A quiet cafe outside the city, neutral ground, a place where no one would recognize us. Lisa arrived in a gray coat too big for her frame, her hair tied up in a loose bun. She looked tired, older than the carefree girl I first met. Grief had a way of aging people quickly. I was already seated at a corner table. 2 hot teas between us. No sugar, no cream, just steam and silence. She slid into the booth without a word. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small stack of folded papers. I printed out the emails he sent me, she said. The ones where he promised me the world. I didn't touch them. Thank you. Lisa looked down at her tea. I still don't know who he really is. Neither do I said. But I know who he's not. She nodded, eyes glassy but focused. You said you had a plan. I slid a folder toward her. Inside, bank statements, work emails, private investigator notes, and a preliminary case outline my lawyer had begun building, not just for divorce, but for financial misconduct, if it ever came to that. He's been using company funds to pay for parts of your relationship, I said plainly. His job isn't as secure as he thinks. She flipped through a few pages, slowly realizing the scale of what I'd built. He thinks he's untouchable. I met her eyes. Then let's make him feel helpless. Lisa took a deep breath, nodding. Whatever you need, I'll back it. Swear under oath, testify, whatever. She didn't owe me that, but she offered it anyway, because now we weren't just two women left in the wreckage, we were a team. We won't get back what he took, I said, folding my hands. But we can make sure he never does this to anyone else. She gave a small, bitter smile. Good. Because I want him to feel the fear he made me carry. The rain tapped harder against the windows, and for the first time since it all began, I felt the storm was no longer above me. It was with me, and we were about to aim it directly at him. He walked into a ghost house. No music, no scent of dinner, no shoes at the door, just silence and emptiness. The entry table was gone. The rug in the hallway we bought together in Barcelona, gone. The photos on the walls, removed, not smashed, not burned, just erased. Half the furniture was missing, not wrecked, not vandalized, strategically removed, like someone who knew exactly what belonged to her and what didn't. Because I did. He called my name once, then again, louder. His voice echoed in the empty rooms. I was already gone. On the fridge, I'd left one thing behind. A crisp white envelope taped dead center, perfectly aligned. A legal notice printed in bold at the top. Below it, per the terms of the marital agreement and current filing, you have 7 days to vacate the premises. The house, of course, was in my name. My father had insisted when we got married. Rowan thought it was a pointless detail, just paperwork. What's mine is yours, he'd said with that damn confident smile. Turns out, what was mine stayed mine. I'd moved the essentials to a new apartment the day before. Storage had taken the rest. My lawyer had filed the first formal motions that morning, restraining use of shared accounts, notifying his employer, triggering the eviction clause we'd had written in, ironically at his own suggestion back when we trusted each other completely. His voice cracked the third time he called me. I imagine the panic was starting to crawl up his throat by then, like smoke in a sealed room. He went to the bedroom. The closet door hung open. My clothes, gone. His suits, untouched. The bed, still made but colder than death. He didn't cry. Not yet. But I know him. He stood in the living room and stared at the couch, the one we'd picked out together. Gone. He stood alone in the center of everything he'd taken for granted. His mouth moved. Maybe he whispered my name again. Maybe he cursed. Maybe he said nothing at all. And I wasn't there to care, because I'd already given him the one thing he gave me. Silence. Except mine wasn't laced with guilt. Mine was the sound of the door closing behind me. For good. He called Lisa 27 times. I know because she showed me. Voicemails, texts, pleas, promises, begging her to answer, telling her he was sorry, that he made a mistake, that he wanted to be a family. But by then it was too late. She sent him one message, just one, after receiving the legal documents that confirmed his accounts had been frozen and the official divorce had been filed. I lost the baby. Don't contact me again. He never replied. Because what could he say? He must have stared at those words, wondering if they were real. Wondering if the only thing left that could have saved him, his child, was now gone forever. But it wasn't gone. Lisa hadn't lost the baby. She was 6 months along, healthy, calm, living in a quiet town up north where no one knew her name. She found a small apartment, started painting again, and got a part-time job at the local library. The kind of life she'd never imagined for herself, but exactly the one she needed. She changed her number, deleted her socials, disappeared. He would never know. Not his child's birthday, not the color of their eyes, not whether they said mama or dada first, not the school they attended, or the shape of their laugh, or the way they held a crayon for the first time. He forfeited all of that the moment he decided to live 2 lives and treat both as disposable. Lisa's child would grow up with love, just not his. He would grow up never knowing the man who helped create him. And Rowan? Rowan would be left with a phantom. A son or daughter that he would imagine only in nightmares. A ghost that would linger behind every cry he'd never hear, every holiday he'd never share, every milestone he'd never witness. He would wonder. Forever. And that, not court filings, not eviction notices, not the company's silence when he asked about next quarter's plans. That would be the thing that broke him in the end. The not knowing. The knowing it wasn't his choice. It was ours. Mine and Lisa's. And we made it without him. The courtroom smelled like old paper and cheap cologne. Rowan sat across from me at the petitioner's table, dressed in a gray suit that used to fit him better. His face was drawn, thinner than before, like the weight of truth had carved him hollow. He looked at me once. I didn't blink. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The room settled into a cold hum of formality and tension. And then the unraveling began. Rowan started with tears. "I never meant to hurt her," he told the judge, voice quivering just enough to sound rehearsed. We were struggling. She was distant. I made mistakes, but I didn't mean for it to go this far. Then came the lies. She went through my things, invaded my privacy. She manipulated that girl, Lisa. This isn't just about infidelity, Your Honor. This is about control. My lawyer, Daniel Kessler, didn't even flinch. He simply rose, buttoned his jacket, and walked to the center of the courtroom like a man stepping onto a stage he owned. "Let's begin," he said, sliding a thick folder onto the bench. "Exhibit A through J, Your Honor. Receipts, emails, bank transfers, screenshots, hotel invoices, the ultrasound bill, a letter from Lisa's former landlord confirming Rowan paid the deposit on her apartment under a false name, a printout of the anonymous email I sent to Rowan's boss, with a follow-up from the HR department confirming an internal review had been launched. We contend that the respondent not only engaged in serial infidelity," Kessler said, voice like a scalpel, "but financed it using marital funds, violated multiple clauses of the prenuptial agreement, and compromised the financial and emotional well-being of our client through deception and misappropriation." Rowan squirmed in his chair. He opened his mouth to object, but Kessler wasn't done. "Here is a timeline of every night he claimed to be working late, cross-referenced with hotel stays booked under his company card." A screen flickered on behind him. Slide by slide, his second life unraveled in full view. Rowan's lawyer, a young man who looked increasingly desperate, tried to speak, but the judge raised her hand. "I've seen enough." She turned to Rowan. "Mr. Alden, I have rarely seen such thorough documentation of misconduct. Your tears may be sincere, but sincerity does not undo patterns of betrayal, fraud, or financial abuse." She didn't yell. She didn't need to. Her words were a gavel by themselves. Then she looked at me. "You will be awarded full ownership of the primary residence, 75% of joint assets, and all entitled damages under the agreement." Rowan lowered his head. I didn't smile. Because winning wasn't a victory anymore. It was just justice. The apartment is small, barely 600 square feet. One bedroom, one bathroom, and peeling laminate floors that creak under every regretful step. It sits above a nightclub downtown. Cheap rent, no deposit, weekly rates if needed. The bass from below pulses through the walls every night, as if reminding him that sleep is no longer something he deserves. Rowan lives alone now. No framed photos, no furniture that wasn't secondhand, just a mattress on the floor, a chipped coffee table, and a flickering TV that stays on all night to drown out the silence. His closet is half empty. He sold most of his suits to cover legal bills. The rest hang limply, still dry cleaned from better days. He doesn't cook. There's no one to cook for. The fridge holds takeout containers, cheap beer, and expired yogurt. Sometimes he stares at the ultrasound photo he printed long ago, back when he still believed in the lie he'd built. He keeps it in a drawer, looks at it like a tombstone. He doesn't know the baby lives. He thinks Lisa miscarried. That the last remnant of what could have been redemption died in the womb, along with whatever future he once imagined. It's better that way. He applied to 4 jobs after the company cut ties. No one called back. The HR department at his old firm never confirmed why he was let go, but word travels fast in professional circles. And so does scandal. At night, when the music downstairs fades and the laughter turns into slurred yelling, Rowan lies awake, staring at the water-stained ceiling, haunted by 3 ghosts. The child he'll never meet, the wife who left without a tear, and the life he threw away one lie at a time. No one visits, no one calls, no one forgives. Not even the walls. They echo every argument, every apology, every name he whispered to 2 women in 2 different beds. And now, he sleeps in neither. Just a mattress, a drawer full of receipts, and a silence louder than any nightclub could ever compete with. My life is quiet now, but not empty. The kind of quiet that feels like standing at the edge of the ocean, not the edge of a cliff. It hums with possibility instead of fear. I wake up without dread in my chest. No need to check a man's phone. No cold weight of wondering what new lie I might stumble across. Just sunlight, strong coffee, and peace. I started traveling again. Not to escape, to expand. Italy in spring, Morocco in late fall. A long train ride through the Alps where I let myself cry. Not out of pain, but relief. Not because I missed him, but because I didn't. Some nights I fall asleep smiling. That used to feel impossible. I began writing down everything I'd learned. Every tactic, every mistake, every warning sign I ignored. Not to shame myself, but to help someone else recognize the storm before it hits. That's how Second Flame was born. A community, a resource hub, and now, a business. For women like me. For the ones who stayed too long. For the ones who blamed themselves. For the ones who believed love meant surviving betrayal. We hold seminars, host free legal Q&As, partner with therapists, financial advisors, and housing programs. We help women leave and land on their feet. Our slogan? You're not broken, you're being reborn. The first check I received from our funding partner was signed with a pen that used to belong to Rowan. I didn't keep it. I mailed it to Lisa with a handwritten note. Your strength built this too. She called me 2 weeks later, laughing as her baby babbled in the background. We talked for an hour. Not about him, just about books, dreams, growth, healing. I'm not who I was. I don't need to be. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a woman can do is rise without bitterness, and then light a path for others to follow. It came on a Tuesday. I was on my way to meet a friend for lunch when my phone buzzed. I didn't recognize the number right away, but the message was unmistakable. Can we talk? Just 4 words. No context, no apology, no name. But I knew who it was. I stared at the screen for a full minute. Not because I was tempted. I wasn't. Not because I needed closure. I had already closed the book. I stared because of the sheer emptiness behind those words. like a man throwing a stone into a canyon and praying for an echo. He wanted something, a conversation, a second chance, a shred of sympathy. But what he didn't understand, what he would never understand, is that the version of me who might have answered no longer existed. She died the night his phone lit up with "I'm pregnant. Tell her soon." This new woman? She didn't entertain ghosts. I didn't respond. Didn't type. Didn't hesitate. I simply blocked the number. No anger. No smug satisfaction. Just a quiet, decisive click. Like closing a window before a storm can drift in. There was nothing left to say. Because not all endings need to be dramatic. Some of them are just done. Some doors don't deserve to be slammed. They deserve to be locked forever, with the key thrown into a life you never want to return to. I went to lunch. Laughed over pasta. Forgot about the message by dessert. And as I stepped back into the sunlight, I realized something. I hadn't thought about him in weeks. Not really. That message? It wasn't a crack in my armor. It was a reminder of just how strong it had become. Lisa visited me last month. It had been nearly a year since our secret meeting at the cafe. Since the envelope, since the courtroom, since the man who connected us was finally erased from both of our lives. She looked different when I opened the door. Not weaker, not tired, but brighter. Her shoulders were no longer curled inward like she was bracing for impact. Her eyes didn't dart toward the ground when she spoke. She walked in like a woman who had saved herself. In her arms, wrapped in a soft yellow blanket, was her daughter. A baby girl with cheeks like rose petals and wide, curious eyes that scanned my face as if searching for something familiar. When she smiled at me, my chest ached. Not with pain, but with something deeper. Something like hope. We didn't say much at first. Just sat in my living room, taking in the silence that used to feel like a void, and now felt like peace. Lisa held her daughter close, her voice soft. "I named her Mira," she said. "It means light in Latin." "She's beautiful," I whispered. She was. As we talked, Mira reached for my necklace and drooled all over my blouse. I didn't care. Lisa laughed, then cried, then laughed again. I joined her. We toasted that night, sparkling apple juice in champagne flutes, because she was still breastfeeding and I had stopped drinking a while ago. The clink of glass wasn't a celebration of survival alone. It was a quiet declaration of rebirth. "To getting out," I said. "To staying out," she added. We talked about the past, but not with bitterness. Just the facts, like flipping through a book we'd both read and never wanted to reopen. "Do you ever think about him?" she asked. "Only when I need a reminder of what I'll never tolerate again." She smiled, rocking Mira gently. We both made it out. "Yes," I said, looking at the child nestled safely in her arms. "We did." They thought I'd break. First, the man who once vowed to protect me. Then the mistress who smiled in my absence. And finally, the world that watched quietly as my life splintered apart, assuming I'd do what so many women do. Collapse, disappear, settle for survival. But I didn't. I burned. And from those flames, I stepped out reborn. It didn't happen overnight. Strength rarely does. It took months of silence, of therapy, of unpacking not just what was done to me, but what I had tolerated. I stared into the mirror more times than I care to admit, asking if I had missed the signs, or just chosen not to see them. But each answer, each tear, each sleepless night brought me closer to something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Real power. The kind that isn't loud or flashy. The kind that comes from knowing you've walked through hell and designed the exit yourself. I now live in a space that breathes. Light filters through the windows in the morning and lands softly on white walls lined with photos I chose. My home is mine, not just in deed, but in energy. There are no ghosts here. My business, Second Flame, thrives. We've helped over 100 women start again, helped them find housing, legal help, therapy, community. Each one carries a piece of my past, and each one walks a little taller because of it. They don't see me as a victim. They see me as proof. I'm richer, not just financially, but emotionally, spiritually. Stronger, not in spite of what happened, but because of how I responded. Wiser, because pain, when wielded with intention, becomes a weapon for truth. People whisper my name now with a different tone. Some with awe, some with fear. And some, especially him, with regret. But none of them matter, because my story isn't one of heartbreak. It's a victory anthem, and I'm just getting started.